Junk food is as addictive as heroin and cigarettes. And that is quoting a scientist from the study. Obesity researchers found fatty and sugary snacks trigger the same pleasure centers in the brain that drive people into drug addiction, making them binge on unhealthy food. The findings could partly explain the soaring obesity rates in Britain and the success of fast food outlets. Experts studied rats fed on cheesecake, bacon, and sausages. Soon after the experiments began, the animals began to bulk up, that is, fatten up, and show signs of addiction. It presents the most thorough and compelling evidence yet that drug addiction and obesity are based on the same underlying neurobiological mechanisms. Keep in mind, this is from 2010, that is 12 years ago. And I'll be going over many similar articles in other videos in preparation for my documentary, Why Junk Food is an Addictive Drug. And I will be exploring why we feed our children addictive drugs and what it's doing to our health and why it's causing all these neurological problems in children. It's causing all these weird health problems, autoimmune problems. There's so many kids with cancer and all these issues, and a lot of it goes back to feeding these kids artificial food that we're not meant to eat. For millions of years, we ate real food. Now we eat all these things with chemicals that are scientifically designed by food scientists to be as addictive as possible and contain thousands of different chemicals, just like cigarettes. So giving your kids junk food is just as bad as giving your kids cigarettes. Oh, in moderation, it's fine. Yeah, give your kids 3 cigarettes a day in moderation. That's fine too. Most of them will probably be okay if you just give them 3 cigarettes a day. But why would you do that at all? In the study, the animals completely lost control over their eating behavior and continued to overeat even when they anticipated receiving electrical shocks. So after they were made addicted to the junk food, they tried punishing the choice to eat junk food with electrical shocks, but that did not deter these fat food addicted animals from eating junk food. This highlights just how motivated they were to consume the palatable, that is, the tasty food. During the trial, the animals were rewarded with a pleasurable electrical stimulation. That's really out of context. Other articles explain this better, but it's going on. The rats could control how much of the stimulation they got by running on a wheel. Animals living on junk food ran far more, suggesting they needed more brain stimulation to feel good, the researchers found. So this is a separate part of the study where if they ran on a wheel, they would receive a pleasurable electrical stimulation in their brain, right? And the ones that were addicted to junk food would run more on these wheels because for some reason, the fact that they were addicted to junk food made them require more impulses of pleasure to their brain, which is how addicts behave. They are far more motivated to seek pleasure, short-term, immediate pleasure. The rats could. All right. So the scientists at the Scripps Research Institute in Florida also gave electrical shocks on their feet when they ate high-fat food, as we discussed before. Rats on a normal diet quickly learn to avoid the unhealthy food. So if they took regular rats and gave them the option between unhealthy food and healthy food, they began choosing only the healthy food because they understood the unhealthy food made them feel bad. But those used to junk food refused to let the shock get in the way of their high calorie food. This really is a terrible article. Okay, so the rats that were only allowed junk food, were only given junk food for a long period of time, so that the only thing they could eat is junk food. So they became addicted to junk food, and then they were given the opportunity to eat either healthy food, normal food, or junk food, and they would only eat the junk food. Normal rats that weren't forced to eat only junk food for a long period of time would naturally avoid eating the junk food after they learned that made them feel bad because they hadn't become addicted to it. They always went for the worst types of food. This is another argument as to why you shouldn't give your children junk food, because if you don't give your children junk food when they're younger, they won't develop that addictive relationship with food. But it's far more complex than that, and I'll have to do a lot of podcasts about this as well. They always went for the worst types of food, says Professor Kenny, who published his findings in the journal Nature Neuroscience. They always went for the worst types of food, said Professor Kenny, who published his findings in the journal Nature Neuroscience. In the journal Nature Neuroscience. It's so hard to learn how to speak properly, isn't it, when you're from South Jersey? When we removed the junk food and tried to put them on a nutritious diet, they simply refused to eat. The researchers found junk food altered the chemical balance in the brain's reward circuits, the parts of the brain that handle the feel-good chemical dopamine. Identical changes happen in the brains of rats given cocaine or heroin and are thought to play a key role in drug addiction. Britons are the world's biggest junk food addicts. At the same time, the average adult eats over 3 portions of fruit and vegetables a day. The recommended number is 5. Britons are the world's biggest junk food addicts? I thought the Americans were. Well, this is in 2010. Maybe that changed? No, even in 2010, I would think Americans were the biggest junk food addicts per capita. This article is very poorly written. David Derbyshire from Daily Mail is absolutely horrendous at writing articles, because I read other articles on the same study, and they're far better written. A lot of this is written in a very confusing manner. A lot of things are taken out of context, and it makes it very difficult to understand it. So he's not a good writer. He's not a good writer. Interesting though. Makes me feel far more confident in my ability to become a writer, because I can write something at least better than this.